572-0215. Rev-Up St. Lucia, the alpha of radio.
Join the United Workers' Party this and every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 FM for an educational and informative program, Meet the Opposition. Participate in exciting discussions from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Be in the know every Thursday on Rev-Up St. Lucia 97.1 from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
It's now time for Meet the Opposition, hosted by Lenard Spider Montoute. Mr. Montoute, welcome again.
Yes, thank you, Andre. Good morning, and good morning to all of our viewers and listeners. Those of you who are listening via radio, those of you who are following us on live stream, welcome to another episode of Meet the Opposition, and I'm hoping that today we're going to have a very interesting discussion. As usual, as always, I will be opening the lines so that you can call in to make your contributions to the program. So, first of all, let me just wish that you all have a very good weekend. Since I've not been in contact with you before the weekend actually starts, it's a long weekend. So, let's have fun. Whatever it is you choose to do, relax, have fun, visit family, whatever. But let's do it in a enjoyable and peaceful manner. Let's not have bad news coming out of the weekend on Tuesday. And of course, we want to know that we can play our part in reducing the crime numbers, especially the numbers of homicides, by finding better ways to resolve our differences and, become more harmonious and amicable with our fellow men and play our part in the effort to, reduce the number of St. Lucians losing their lives as a result of violent crime. Now, talking about violent crime, Andre, I will take off this morning on a related subject. And again, I've done it before, I'm going to do it again. No praises too much for our police officers. We criticize them quite a lot when we're not satisfied, but when their successes, I think we should highlight it. And in the news, some days ago, we heard of a massive drug bust in the north of over, I think it was, $4 million worth of illicit drugs. And soon thereafter, or about the same time, we heard that there was a bust at the ports where some 17 guns were seized and 3,000 rounds of ammunition. And of course, the guns that I saw in the picture, I'm not, an expert on guns, but those guns that I saw there didn't look like the kind of guns you hunt birds with, So what I'm happy about is that those weapons did not find themselves on the streets of St. Lucia, because God knows, what hands would they find themselves in, and how much more they would contribute to the incidents of violent crime, gun-related crime, and murders in St. Lucia. But related to all of this is something that struck me very much, and that is while the police were making their report on both matters, mention was made of the K9 unit. And I mentioned that because, I know the opposition has been calling for the reinstatement. I've been calling for the reinstatement of the K9 unit because there was one in existence while the Alan Chastney administration was in office, because they were taking a number of crime-fighting initiatives like opening up the forensic lab, providing the patrol boats to the police to patrol our borders. They were trying to implement a border control where they would have a dedicated, unit for the purpose of border control. And a number of other initiatives like CCTV cameras and all of these things. And as soon as the government changed and the SLP administration got into office, they disbanded the K9 unit. And at the time, I believe the excuse was, I call it an excuse, was that it was too expensive. At least Dr. Ernest Healer said that it was too expensive because it would cost the government some $40,000 monthly. We recently heard from the Prime Minister at another time that, it's not that easy, it's not that simple, it's not that straightforward. You need trainers, you need this, you need that, all of which was in place when the unit existed. But however, in their wisdom, they disbanded the unit. I remember that at the time it was former Commissioner Daisy, who was at the helm of the police force, I remember him publicly calling for the reinstatement of the K9 units. And I remember that in his statement, he did indicate that there was a 63% success rate using the dogs, and that the dogs were able to detect drugs, illegal drugs. They assisted in detecting guns and ammunition and large sums of cash, which means they helped in the fight against money laundering as well. And so he also pointed out that in one bus, they had recovered more than $40,000 worth of cash, and that, they had discovered guns, they had discovered all of those things. Now, I do not even want to quantify the worth of the dogs against those buses. While that in itself could have paid for the maintenance of the dogs, I'm going further than that. Because the drugs, when it gets to the street, people don't make that direct connection, but drugs has a direct connection with other criminal activity. Because it's an illegal activity, finds itself in the hands of gangs, that gives rise to territorial warfare, that gives rise to, of course, all other, things that can go bad in terms of deals and so on. And given the fact that it's illegal, they do not go to the police, they settle it themselves. How do they settle it? Through violence. And so that has a direct correlation to other criminal activity. And we know too that the guns now finding themselves on the streets, those guys didn't get the guns simply to have it for sure. There's evidence that they were using it, and that every life that is lost, in fact, I would rather put it differently. Are you going to say to me that to save at least one life, it is not worth more than $40,000? Mm-hmm. And that is how I look at it. I'm not even looking at what former Commissioner Daisy was saying, while it was valid, that the dogs were actually earning their keeps in terms of because when the confiscations were made, Andre, if someone is arrested, that person is charged and so on, that in itself is revenue that is generated as a result of the involvement of the dogs. But the police commissioner called for the dogs. Like I said, he said like in some 47 raids, if I may call it that, that they had a 63% success rate, which is pretty high, more than 50% and so on. And so he was highly recommending that the dogs remain and all were reinstated. He was calling for the government to renew the contract for the dogs to continue to operate. Even when he was replaced with Commissioner Pelius, she too, according to the Prime Minister, pleaded for the return of the K9 unit. So it is evident, it is obvious that the police are aware that the dogs played a big role. I don't know why the government didn't see the wisdom in it. And of course, with, during the time of Commissioner Pelius, there was Tyson that was given to us by the French. And even then, we experienced success. And now with Commissioner Gad, he too has made a plea for the reinstatement of the K9 unit, and we are seeing, according to the police, that the dogs are assisting with major, crime interventions and successes at that. Now, and I want to compliment the government for finally doing the right thing, and albeit it is as a result of pressure from the police and the opposition, but, if we criticize them when they don't do it, if they do it, it's a good thing, and we are seeing the positive results of it, we have to give compliment where it is due.
I have a couple of questions when you're done. Just a couple of questions.
Okay. And I also want to say too that having reinstated the K9 unit, again, my understanding it is through the intervention and assistance of the French, as it was when we had Tyson. My only and biggest disappointment, Andre, while I welcome the news of those big busts and so on, Andre, I've never heard of any arrests.
No, that's where I was going to go.
And I'm worried about that. I'm concerned about that because I'm going to quote the Prime Minister. I'm not a police. But common sense would tell me that if there's a consignment, there's a consignee. Mm-hmm. So a barrel is coming from Andre Paul to Spider Montoute. Because that's the only way I can claim that barrel is because it's addressed to me.
Mm-hmm.
A package, a container, whatever. Why don't we trace who at the end point to whom it is going? Because you see, what is important, Andre, if they just seize the gun, seize the drugs, seize the money, the network continues. It still exists. They may just beef up their strategy to beat the crime fighting forces and to get those things here in some other way. But if you intercept and arrest, then you will disrupt the flow, so to speak, which is a bigger success to my mind. And so I'm a little concerned, I'm a little disturbed about the fact that there are no arrests. And it worries me, and it raises a lot of questions in my mind. Because if you get to the point of detecting the drugs, then I think, I'm not in a position to say it's easy to do the rest, but I think it's logical that the rest can be achieved.
So no doubt, the police are probably following up, but I think they owe an explanation to the public.
Very much so.
As to what's happening, whether arrests are going to be made or not made, and if not, explain to the public why that is so, because everybody's asking the same question.
Right.
17 firearms, okay? 3,000 rounds of ammunition.
Yeah.
Thank God, as you said, they're intercepted.
Yeah.
And to just leave that at that?
We need to get at the bottom of it, and so on. Now,
so no doubt the opposition will be applying the pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
you say yes, or you're not sure?
No, we are, and here am I now speaking as opposition. I have serious concerns in the first place as to why the government decided to disband the K9 unit. There is no logical explanation, because the issue of cost, the police themselves said that the dogs were paying for themselves. About the trainers and all of that, well, there were then, there are now, so what is the issue?
And by the way, explain to us, the trainers, is that a continuous training, or is it
when they say the trainers, quite apart from training the dogs, even after the dogs are trained, Andre,
right,
I don't have the expertise to make the dogs what they're supposed to do or what have you. So the trainers would have to be the ones, directing the dogs and so on. So you need the trainers.
Okay. But don't these people form part of this unit?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
But he's saying that that is needed and so on. But I see that as cheap excuses, because they exist, get them. And so, in the absence of information from the appropriate authorities, people speculate. And the Prime Minister himself, who is the Minister of National Security, has on occasions, rather than answering questions, boldface said to people, go and speculate. So I have no choice, I have to speculate. I am concerned about what is the justification, the logic behind disbanding the unit, when it is clear and evident from the police and from the results that we've seen that we are experiencing successes in fighting crime when the K9 unit exists. Are we not concerned about the rate of crime, especially given the fact that we have record numbers of homicide in the last 2 years? So you would think that would be something that would be given high priority. It has not been, and it has to take pressure for the government to do it. Some people are saying that there are elements in the government who would not want a K9 unit, who would not want the radars they use? Is it radars? The ones that they use to detect metal, to detect drugs and so on, at the airports and at the seaports. If you recall, as soon as the government came into office, there was a report that...
Scanners.
The scanners, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. As soon as the government came into office, there was a report that the scanners went bad, and some mysterious fluid fell on them, and so they were no longer operational. So I asked myself, but boy, I know there are coincidences, but is it a coincidence? It's a coincidence that the scanners went bad, the K9 unit disbanded, and so on. What's going on? And people are speculating, and, well, of course, in the absence of information, speculation is justified. So some people are asking whether there are elements within the government who are responsible for those occurrences. And so you would ask, well, what sense does that make? The difference is, Andre, if Spider Montoute is a law enforcement officer, you, Andre, can bribe me. You can, corrupt me to the point of facilitating your criminal activity. That's difficult to do with dogs. That's impossible to do with the scanners. So if the scanners are used and there is something in the barrel or the box or the package, it will beep. Whereas I can even search the barrel, the box, the package, and say there's nothing. The dogs, when they're sniffing out drugs, cash, and firearm and ammunition, in all the training that they give the dogs, they never train them how to read. So the name Spider Montoute will not mean anything to them written on the package. So they will sniff out the package anyway, So these are questions people are asking. Does that have anything to do with it? The next thing people are saying is, okay, if you notice, when we got Tyson, it was the French. When we got these last dogs there, again, it was the French who intervened.
By the way, how many do we have now?
I do not know. I will not. Well, that one I'll not speculate on, and to be wrong. But some people are saying it is not out of the government's will that the K9 units were reinstated, but as a result of pressure, force by the French authorities. So, my response was to the person was that, look, the French authorities have no jurisdiction over us, and we are a sovereign country. They said, no, but your guns find themselves in Martinique and are involved in criminal activities in Martinique. How do you know that? Our guns mostly come from America, as different to the guns that come from Europe. So they can tell. So the question is whether St. Lucia is a transshipment point for weapons and drugs. And so it is in their interest to have those K9 units operational so that it can intercept them before it gets to their shores. That is another point of speculation. I would hate to think that those are the reasons. I would want to believe that it is because our government are conscientious about the need to reduce crime, to reduce criminal activity, and to do everything possible to minimize the number of St. Lucians who are losing their lives as a result of violent crime. That much I will say for now on the issue of the K9 unit. But I'm hoping that they will continue to take the advice of the opposition, because a lot of it, Andre, was sound advice. And you see, like I always say, there are things we can bicker about, there are things we can differ about, but when it comes to certain national issues, such as crime, we must be unified on that, and we must all, join our efforts in fighting crime, because contrary to what the Prime Minister wants to suggest, when he is engaging in subterfuge and, trying to scapegoat and so on, the opposition has no benefit or interest in seeing the escalation of crime in this country. We all live here. We all have families here. And I always say, some of those dangerous weapons, like the high-powered guns that I saw there, find themselves in the hands of criminals, some of whom cannot even handle those there. And unfortunately, Andre, you may find yourself at the wrong place, at the wrong time, in the wrong company, and you can become a victim even when you're innocent of any crime. So it is a concern to all of us. It is our business. And the other thing is, when crime thrives, criminals become more emboldened, more powerful, and they go from bad to worse in terms of the things that they do. And we all are in danger. So we cannot want crime to escalate. And that would be stupid of the opposition, because if you are seeking to become the government, so what happens when you become government? You have to deal with that crisis, you have to deal with that situation. And so some recommendations were made by the opposition, and I compliment and commend the opposition for that, that patriotic move. And it was sent to the Prime Minister, And the Prime Minister publicly stated that it's written in the bin. Now, that is, I mean, I do not know how St. Lucians look at it, but that is a very, very appalling signal to the country when a leader can do something like that and say it, you know. Now, it's bad for him to have done it. It's even worse for him to come and publicly feel that he can say that to the nation, because it perpetuates division. It shows how high-handedness exists with those who can wield power, and it shows a lack of genuine resolve to bring to an end and to solve a national crisis, because we had a crisis here to the extent that we had to bring in external forces to assist us at one point when, you know, we had like 9 murders in the space of a few days and that kind of thing, where criminals took over Vieux-Fort, literally, put people in Vieux-Fort on a curfew and all of that. We have to remember that we have a population, and that it is the responsibility of any government to ensure to the security and safety of the population. We have to remember that we have an economy that is based predominantly on tourism. No one will visit your shores if they think it is unsafe for them to do so. And we have to remember too that the reputation of your country, you know, in terms of, because even if you're not killed, Andre, what kind of life are you living when you're living in fear, when, you know, there's chaos, there's, you know, disorder, and so on? Quality of life is affected. So all of those things must be taken into consideration. And so I thought that was very disappointing and appalling for the Prime Minister to have adopted that posture. And well, but in the end, of course, he appeared to have gone back to the bin. So because I see some of the policies, some of the recommendations have been implemented, and I welcome that. And of course, we look forward. I say we. I'm part of the United Workers' Party, but I am not one of the candidates now who are the ones who will be directly responsible for policy elucidation and implementation. So I'm saying so more in my capacity as a citizen of St. Lucia. I'm hoping that they will even make further pronouncements as to what plans they have for crime fighting, you know, and how they're going to, you know, ensure that they arrest the situation that exists right now. I see the government beating their chest. Now, that's the thing, you know. They beat in their chest that there's a reduction when you compare this time of year to last year. There's a reduction in the number of homicides, and they want to take credit for it. But when you call on them during the escalation, they take umbrage and so on. But you can have it both ways, you know what I'm saying? That is their responsibility. And I have always said that they have touted some measures that were taken, but those were predominantly cosmetic. Telling me that you have a minister for crime prevention, that was nothing more than providing a job to one of your elected members, because nobody has told us up to now, okay, what is the whole concept, what is the plan behind the establishment of that ministry, what exactly is he going to do? And it is in existence already, I think, over a year.
Mm-hmm. And I think if I remember him clearly speaking, he was talking about getting an assistant.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's in existence for over a year. And up to now, what are the plans of the ministry? What is the ministry doing? And so on. I mean, we don't just, because you see, in name, there is a ministry, but is there really a ministry? What was put in place to ensure that that ministry function? And even the name, Andre, told me that those guys were jokers, you know, a Ministry of Crime Prevention. Ideally, you try to prevent crime, Andre, but invariably, there will be crime. So to say, because if you strictly speaking go according to the nomenclature of Ministry of Crime Prevention, once there is one crime, you fail, you know. Because you didn't prevent it, you know. But that notwithstanding, on a more serious note, the Ministry of Crime Prevention, you have a Minister of Crime Prevention, you have a Minister of National Security, you have the Attorney General, you have a Minister of Justice. And if his request moves forward, there will be an assistant to the Minister for Crime Prevention. That's right. So, but we are not hearing any real concrete policies or plans to satisfy us that there's a serious effort to reduce crime in St. Lucia. Because you see, it is easy to take credit when crime is reduced and so on. But are there moves that we can see that are clearly aimed at crime reduction? Like, for example, the K9 unit, the reinstatement of the K9 unit.
I'm glad you went back there, because I wanted to ask you, why is it so expensive to underwrite the K9 unit? I mean, you mentioned a figure of $40,000 a month.
That's what was quoted.
So, do you know what it entails?
I guess.
I mean,
I
these
guess
things eat steak or something for breakfast?
I guess when they talk about the K9 unit, they're not only talking about the dogs, they're probably talking about the trainers that come with it. You know, and I do not know if those dogs, like you said, eat special, they have
special diet or
diets
something?
and so on. I don't know.
Do they stay in a hotel or something?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But those are high value dogs, so I would imagine where they will have to ensure that they're under proper conditions, that they get regular veterinary services and things like that. That's my assumption.
And air conditioned doghouse as well?
Well, all of those things. Make sure that they're not infested with pests like fleas and things like that.
I mean, $40,000
I'm just trying to speculate as to what will bring it up to that amount, but that's what they say.
That's a lot of money.
It is
a month.
It is, but if it is worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't questioning that.
Correct,
I'm just saying, I'd like to know why is it
so expensive.
So expensive.
Yeah. And so, we want to know that the government is on top of because you see, we don't understand that the human psyche is such that if you succeed in going one step, that's encouragement to take another step. And when the criminals are successful in what they do, things get from bad to worse. And if we do not show strong resolve and let them know that there's a zero tolerance and that no effort would be spared to go against the criminal activities, then criminals feel that they run the country. They can just take control. I mean, we have seen criminals in the news openly, not even masked, openly threaten the police and tell the police that they have guns too and the high-powered. And we know that they do have high-powered weapons. In some cases, I wonder if they're not more armed, more in terms of the powerful weapons that they have. I mean, we heard in Viewport the kind of automatic, rifles that were being used there and all of that. There are recordings of those things. So we now have to ensure, because, Andre, I'm prepared to say that the majority of us are peaceful, law-abiding citizens. But we cannot allow the few hooligans, criminal elements to take control of our country and ruin our quality of life, ruin our future, ruin our economy, and all of that, and even take our lives. And so I want to say that, kudos to the police. I will end by saying kudos to the police, and to encourage the government. You have seen when you take advice, it brings success. Forget the politics in some cases. Okay, there are politicians, there will be politics, Andre, but in some cases, put the politics aside and do the right thing for the people, do the right thing by the people. And that is one such thing. And even if it was Alan Shastney or Guy Joseph or Dominic Fede who made the recommendation, like the young people say, don't watch face. If it is a good recommendation, implement it for the benefit of the nation. Okay? Now you all can go and fight for credits, who did what, and so on, and we, the voters, will decide how we deal with it. But let's put the more important things first. The more important thing is that we do what is right to create the right atmosphere and environment in this country. So, yes, Andre.
So, no doubt, this K9 unit played a big part in the confiscation of all these firearms and ammunition.
That's correct.
No doubt, yeah? So that's what they call money well spent.
Unfortunately, Andre, they'll not be the ones to track down the actual perpetrators.
Yes.
Now, so I'm calling on the police to go one step further and to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to justice.
I agree.
And so...
And if they can't, there needs to be an explanation.
Yes, there needs to be an explanation. Because, you see, what are we going to start believing, Andre? If they catch me, well, boy, I lose $4 million, that I lose 17 guns, that's the only consequence.
And there's more.
Yeah.
The perception in the eyes of the public, right, people are already wary of the whole system and the police and this sort of thing, right? And people are thinking, well, why aren't arrests being made?
That's right.
Maybe there's some kind of corruption. Is the police protecting people? Right? Is the government that's what people are going to be saying.
You're very right about that. You are very right about that. And so, and not to mention too, that it is frightening to know that the people who are responsible for the importation of 17 high-powered guns are still around and can still be in operation.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to do something about that part to complete the process, so to speak.
I agree.
Yeah. So, Andre, I want to go up north. Isla Resorts, that was in the news.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an hotel that is being built in Rodney Bay. And of late, it featured prominently in the news when some workers claimed that they were working, like skilled workers were working for $180 a day, like masons and carpenters and so on, and that their pay was suddenly cut from $180 to as little as $100 because the employers were claiming that they were not satisfied with the quality of work that was being produced by the workers.
I think most of it had to do with the workers, how they sold themselves.
Right.
Basically saying that they have skills.
They misrepresented.
Yes, that's
the skills that they did not possess and so on. So now, I heard that side of things coming from Dr. Ernest Healy.
Yes.
I heard the workers' side. Now, that's two different sides. It is not for me to jump to conclusion right now. Further investigation would have to be done to find out what is the actual situation. But what I can say is my criticism on how the situation was handled, if that's the way it was handled, I would say it was poorly handled. And that is, if the employers deem that, okay, the guys misrepresented their level of skill and they were not producing what was expected of them and so on, you cannot just one day, according to the workers, when they show up, they're being told from now on you're getting paid $100 and so on. There must be some engagement. And that should have been done in a different manner. So you engage the workers, let them know what your concerns are, your queries are, and before any action is taken.
Who's supposed to do that, in your opinion?
The employer.
Employer.
Yeah.
Did you think that was done?
Well, the workers are saying that was not done. And I've not heard any response.
Because there must have been some kind of communication by virtue of the fact that the worker said, well, my salary was reduced. So there must have been some kind of communication.
Yes, but what they were suggesting is that it was just done suddenly. And they're saying too that some of the claims made by the employers were not true because they built certain things from scratch up to wherever, and only now they are complaining because they're saying that the project is going to go on for so long, and it's according to the workers, a cost-cutting measure on the part of the employers as opposed to what they are claiming. Now, you see, for me, some of the workers, and no insult to anyone or trying to put anyone down, Andre, some of the workers may not be able to adequately represent themselves. And that is why you have unions and so on, where you have worker representatives. In that case there, I don't think these people are unionized. But then, as a former parliamentary representative, I think it is within the jurisdiction and the responsibility of a parliamentary representative to come in to provide some representation. It is within the jurisdiction of a government, who are the ones who negotiated with the investors, to come in to intervene now and to be the go between the negotiator between the government and the workers. When I listened to Dr. Ile, what he said gave rise to the workers saying that he was siding with the investors. They are saying too that the investors said that they had the support of the government and they had bought the government. The workers actually said that.
Yeah, but that may not be true. Huh?
That may not be true. But what bothers me is that the government has not come out and said anything about that.
That's true.
So because when the workers said that
I heard it.
That took me by surprise, and I said, wow, that's a strong allegation to make. So I expected the government to come back, in particular Dr. Ernest Healer, to come back and do, clear the air on that and let it be known that that has not been done. And so, again, we are left to speculate. You see, this is a government, and you see, we have to take things, dissect things and take it from the root. This is a government who campaigned on putting people first. And I will always say that they campaign on that mantra, they keep repeating it, and so on. And while people are claiming that that was deceptive, that they're not putting people first and so on, I am not of that view, Andre. They are putting people first, but who? Who are the people they put in first? You see, before St. Lucians took a dive into accepting the bluff, they should have asked some questions. You see, and that's why I say to you, you have to engage those who offer themselves to serve you. And that's why I believe in the politicians facing the media, because I may not be adequately equipped to ask the kind of questions in the way it should be, but the media can do it on my behalf. So these people have to avail themselves to press conferences. I'm going to repeat again, debates, so that we can get to know them better and get a better explanation of what their policies are. Because I can stand on the platform, Andre, and espouse whatever it is that comes to my mind or what I think will appeal to the voter, and go as far as I choose to. Because if I say to you, Andre, I will give everyone beef every month and so on, okay, it may be beef that the vets from the Ministry of Agriculture reject, and I collect it and give it to people. So it's a pertinent question to ask, where are you going to get that beef from? How are you going to, provide it and so on? Or are you going to take taxpayers' money to buy beef to give people? You see, there are many questions we must ask. So we are gullible to the extent that we just accept everything we hear at face value. Do not accept things at face value. Dig deeper. Because when the government says that they are putting people first, we are now seeing who it is that they are putting first. In that case here, I'm accusing Dr. Ernest Healer and the St. Lucia Labour Party of putting the investors first. They did not sound to me like they were taking into consideration the queries, the complaints, and the plight of the workers.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What should have been the proper procedure as far as the reduction of salaries concerned? That should be a matter handled by the Labour Department, that they should have been involved, or who handled? Because it sounds to me like
it could have been negotiated between the workers and the employers. But
you made a good point earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the government is responsible now for ensuring that the St. Lucians are protected.
That's correct.
Yeah, we agree on that one.
Yeah.
So something went wrong somewhere.
So what should have been done is to bring people to the table, because the government has a whole structure in place, through the Labour Department, to do that. I'm not suggesting that Dr. Ernest Healer himself personally had to do it, but they could have had the Labour officers to go in and find out exactly what is the situation and iron out the situation there, right, to the satisfaction of everyone.
Instead of just taking the word of the employer.
Exactly. So in that case there, it appears to me the optics are that the government has taken the side of the employers. So these are the people that they put in first. And as well, it raises... By
the way, any update on those workers? Are they still with the company? Do you know?
I do not know. But I said I have to inquire about that, because as a talk show host myself, I want to, that first. One of them promised to speak with me, but we have not gotten down to that. But you see, it raises a bigger issue, Andre, and I'll go beyond the situation to say that while we are looking for investments, we have to position ourselves to ensure that we maximize the returns for St. Lucia and St. Lucians in terms of taking full advantage of the investment. So if you're going to bring an hotel to St. Lucia, it's not like they're going to put a hotel on a boat and bring it here. The hotel has to be built. So let us ensure that we have the skilled workers at all levels to build that hotel so that investment in building will redound to the benefit of St. Lucian workers. Let's ensure that when that hotel is opened, that whatever it is that is required to run a hotel, accountants, chef, whatever, not just the low-level waiter, waitress thing, but at all levels, management level, that we have skilled people here to take up those jobs as well. So in that way, we'll be maximizing the benefit of that investment. But if you have a hotel and only bellboys and waiters and waitresses that are going to get jobs there, and all the high-level jobs, management jobs and so on, go to foreigners, we are falling short. We are failing ourselves because that's money that is being repatriated, whereas it could have stayed here.
And I'm wondering, Mr. Montoute, whether the skills that are required by that particular organization, whether those skills have to be taught, right? In other words, for our St. Lucians to upgrade themselves.
That is what I'm advocating.
Are these, is that available in St.
We know what is required, and I've heard complaints before that when it comes to finishing work in construction, that some of the investors complain about the level. I heard that during the time of Royalton, because I was in cabinet at the time, and they requested that they bring in workers. And of course, we wanted to know, well, why? Because we have people here looking for jobs, and they were saying that the finer, finishing touches and so on, that we didn't have the skills here for that, and so on. And so, as a result, they requested that the Labor Department gave work permits for foreigners to come.
So, what happened in that instance? Do you remember?
Well, they did bring in some foreign workers. I'm saying that should cause us to say, well, okay.
Even as a government?
As government.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter which government. We have a shortage in that department. That's a loss that we are suffering, because those could have been St. Lucians who were making that money. And those people are more highly paid, Andre, by the way.
Yeah.
So let us prepare our people for that, to provide the training opportunities for them and so on.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that all the TVET schools and all those technical training schools and so on will look into that. And if it means bringing experts from outside, if we do not have the expertise here, to train our people, that we do that. Because, we have to continue to maximize what it is that can be derived from the limited resources that we have here. Because when the investor comes, he's coming to make money for himself. But it must be a mutually beneficial engagement so that we too can get something out of it. And that is my position on that. And that is where representation comes in. And I am a little disappointed that you're not seeing evidence that, and I'm not saying you cannot be hostile to investors if you want to bring in investors. But what I'm advocating is a mutually beneficial arrangement. So far, when I look at the investments that have been made since the advent of this Labour Party government, it is a lopsided, one-sided arrangement in favor of the investors. So much so that questions are being asked about the people who entered into those deals, who negotiated those deals, whether there is some benefit that they know of that we don't know of. That is my position. And I'm stating it categorically, because that makes me, what comes to mind now as I'm talking about that is the GPH deal, the CIP arrangements, the NH, Halls of Justice arrangements. All of those deals seem to be lopsided and skewed toward the benefit of the investor. And that cannot be, because our government is here to represent us,
people.
We the people of St. Lucia, and to try to negotiate the best possible arrangement for us, so that the benefits that can be derived would be as great as possible. Because we have limited resources. Our land is limited, which is our biggest resource, and so we have to ensure that we make the most of it. We must be, a lot more efficacious in terms of how we go about leveraging the resources that we have, And so that I want to say to St. Lucians that they should realize now that the slogan of putting people first was not complete, because it did not tell us who are the people. but St. Lucians are seeing for themselves. Because first thing you might say, Andre, well, boy, I expect Spider to say that he is part of the opposition team. But forget what I say. Check what you see. The evidence is there that you're not the one that is being put first. The investors, the foreigners, are the ones that are being put first. I will move to another example.
But let me ask you something.
Yeah.
But as a reasonable thinking person, in your judgment, you realize that the investor is in the right. What are you supposed to do as a government? Because you realize that the investor is correct. We don't have our people do not have the skills.
If that is the case, because the workers are saying that what they are accusing them of is not correct. They're saying that because one guy came and he said, well, he is competent. He has been doing what he's supposed to do. There have been no complaint.
That's true. But remember, even by your own admission, you said during your time, that situation.
Royalton came to the table and said there are certain things that needed to be done.
Right.
Is that the case? That we don't know. They are just saying that the carpenters and so on, they're paying them $180 a day. And like some of them are not up to scratch. Is that true? Or is it just a cop-out on the part of... And I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying some neutral party was supposed to have gone in, especially since the workers are pushing back and saying that is not the case. A neutral party should have gone in to ascertain what exactly the situation is.
Okay, I agree.
Okay? And that should have been facilitated by Dr. Ernest Ile, rather than Dr. Ernest Ile just simply taking a side and taking the side of... Now, I'm not necessarily saying he should take a side, okay? But he did. But if he should take a side, Andre, I would have expected that it would be the side of the workers of St. Lucia.
Even if they're wrong?
No, I'm saying you should not take a side. Right or wrong, he should not take a side. He should go in and find out what the situation and bring some resolution to it. But he took a side. So if you're going to take a side, why is it the side of the investor you took, the foreigner?
So what gives the impression that he took a side? What gives that impression?
Well, he came out and spoke in favor of publicly, he spoke in favor of the investors. Okay? In effect, endorsing the side of the story that was provided by the investor and ignoring the side of the story that we got from the workers. So he clearly took a side, So... And I will, as we go through our discussions, I'll come to another subject again that will demonstrate whose side the government is on. Okay? But before I go there, I want to...
By the way, I read this morning about Secrets Resort and Spa. Was your administration aware of this development?
Yes, that's Morgan Bay. That's shock,
Apparently they're under new management or something.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Okay.
Because remember, they closed and refurbished and all of that.
So I think they officially reopened yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
So again, was that something that was happening during your United Workers' Party administration, or this is something that happened recently?
I'm not sure if it started during our administration.
All right.
And I'm not in the business of taking credit for where that is not due. So I don't know, but maybe Dominic and those guys will be more familiar and we know exactly when that started. But you see, now if you notice, Andre, of late, disgruntlement is surfacing from different quarters. You had the island resorts workers, you had customs, you had Ministry of Health, even if we didn't hear about it in the news, because I went to a department of Ministry of Health and I saw nobody there. And there are two individuals present, one who indicated there was a sick out. That's not how she put it, but the other people were sick. I found it strange how everybody was sick and just a couple were not, So we know that was industrial action. And the ports, Andre. So all is not well in Sweet St. Lucia. And we know that St. Lucians are docile people, very tolerant people. And when you see it gets to the point where St. Lucians react, things have to be bad. And I am saying that I am suggesting to you, Andre, that all of those situations arose out of poor management, poor governance. Because what is happening at the port could have been averted, and I am in a position to say so. I can simply tell you, had the government followed the plans that were in train as established by Alan Shastney
By the way, you're talking about the truckers, right?
Yes.
That's what okay. All right.
Alan
Just to be
Shastney's
sure.
administration, we would not be in a situation like this today. And I'm not saying that every succeeding administration has to adopt the policies and plans of the previous one. But if you're not going to adopt it, you're coming for a better one. Okay? But they clearly did nothing to make the situation better, as is being revealed now.
You want to tell us about those plans?
Because the United Workers' Party planned to establish a container port in cul-de-sac, so that all those big containers and everything that would not find themselves on the port and have to be maneuvering through the city of Castries, okay, it would be on the other side of the tunnel at cul-de-sac. So that would be a designated, dedicated port for containers. That's one. I imagine if the amount of land that it would be available, the truckers wouldn't have any problem in terms of congestion and all of that, so that would not have been a problem. We also were planning to establish a home cruise port in Vieux-Fort. So, and given what is happening in the modern day cruise industry, we were going to make provisions for those mega cruise ships and so on. So most, I'm not saying all, but most of the cruise ships would have gone to Vieux-Fort. Again, easing the congestion at Port Castries. Now, I'm not going to go into the other aspects of it where the plans were to have home porting and all the benefits that bring and so on. I'm not going into that now. But I'm just saying that these plans would have alleviated the problem that we now face in Castries. So when it comes to cargo, normal cargo and so on, that would be accommodated in Castries with ease, you know. But what is happening here right now is, you know, when you talk about truckers, you're talking about guys with those big 18-wheelers with big containers behind them, 40-feet containers and all of that. For them to maneuver and to find space on the port is difficult with all the cargo that is there, the cruise ships that have to come, the cars, because we import a lot of cars, Andre, and that's another thing I think as a policy government has to begin to look at. Now, I said so the other day, a friend of mine said, now you're not in government anymore, you say that.
Or you have yours already.
Yeah, I have mine already, you know, but I've always said we have to look at more closely what our policy is on bringing in all those cars and so on, when we do not have the roads, even the road infrastructure to support that kind of traffic. But that's another discussion. But the cars are there and all of that. So the guys are saying it's difficult for them. And so as a result, a lot of wastage takes place. I heard a trucker say that it sometimes take him almost 12 hours parked outside, waiting to get in.
And not to mention the tickets which are being issued by the police.
Ticketed by the police.
And that's very important.
Exactly.
But before you continue, let me just ask you a question.
Yeah.
No doubt, these truckers who have been were complaining to those in authority at the ports and so on. Why does it have to get to the point where, as you said there, we are very, very docile people. Yeah. When we take action, it's because we've gotten to the point now we really can't take anymore.
That's correct.
Why is it that there's always this slow sort of response to the concerns, and when it gets now to the point where action is being taken, all of a sudden now, let's meet, let's talk.
Right.
Why does that happen?
A clear reflection of where priorities and interests lie. Simple as that. That's my simple answer to that. Because you see, the same St. Lucia Labour Party government in opposition, Andre, would agitate about certain things, and I will come to that. Because after we discuss the ports, I'm going to talk about the bananas land. I'm only going to come to that. They can agitate effectively when it suits them. But when they are actually in a position to make things right by the same people they claim that they're interested in, it's a totally different story. And I will show you that when we're discussing the bananas land. But talking about the port, the truckers, Andre, I was saying, I listened to a trucker and he was saying that, look, apart from the fact that he spends so many hours there, Andre, there's the saying that time is money. They get ticketed, as you indicated. Okay, so they have to spend money.
Also traffic.
And traffic congestion, which is you
it's
and
bad.
I are affected
yes,
as well.
That is true. That is true.
On top of that, Andre, that never even dawned on me. And you see, when you're not involved in something, you don't have first-hand knowledge of it, you overlook a lot of things. The guy is saying to me that his truck is a refrigerated refrigerated container truck.
Mm.
And you know that truck has to keep running for all those hours because,
Wow.
you know,
Yeah.
he has to keep whatever
At a certain
merchandise he
temperature.
has at a certain temperature.
Mhm.
You know those losses, Andre. That's massive losses. Now again, you went in your business, you are selling, let's say chicken back there in the container. You are selling chicken back, you are a trucker, that's not your business.
Right. Well, we eat it.
Exactly. Now the other thing is, Andre, that money, there's a cost. You got loss of time. They may even add the tickets into it. And the fact that they have to spend, because I imagine they burn more fuel by keeping the truck on all those hours and so on.
And by the way, considering the tickets,
Yeah.
there's word out there that now they're appealing to the police now to
To withdraw the ticket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I think is a reasonable
I think it's
request.
fair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Andre, at the end of the day, the truckers will figure, boy, Spider, if you want me to haul your merchandise for you, it's costing me so much, and they may add my other ticket into it too. I have to keep my engine running for 12 hours and whatever. So they will tell you, now I can't do it for you for $100. You have to give me $120.
Mhm.
Andre, in the end, who pays for that?
We.
Okay. Because you see, you make the mistake that they're charging the merchant more money. They're not charging the merchant more money. The merchant is paying them more money, but you are the one. Because at the end of the day, merchant is going to put that into the calculation in terms of the cost, And when they sell it to you, you pay more. So all around, we as a nation, we as a population, are being affected by the poor decisions, poor judgment, and bad governance that is taking place. So we have to hold our government accountable, for those things and put the pressure where it is due. And I want to say categorically that I wholeheartedly and fully support the truckers in their efforts. I'm hoping that something is done because you see now I heard they're sending cars to Beaufort and they're doing this and they're doing that.
Mhm.
So
I think
all
they
along-
even facilitated them by using, I think, the Millennium Highway.
Right.
Yeah, so they were able to do something.
Right.
Mm.
But I'm saying all along, again, it is vision, it is projection, it is planning. All along.
And as well, Mr. Montoute, listening to what the people are saying,
Exactly.
because that could have been avoided.
It could have been avoided because, like you said, Andre, you sure they were complaining all along. Because don't tell me a man who want to sit in his truck for 8 hours. I mean, whereas he probably could have been looking for some other trip, during that
Exactly.
time and so on.
Mhm.
So, a government that really cares would ensure that even before the situation gets to what it is, that they would have addressed the situation, put things in place. And that is why I say to people, and I have no compunctions in saying so, that the UWP is far superior to the St. Lucia Labour Party any day when it comes to vision. Because here it is, they had a plan that would alleviate that situation completely. Not to mention the fact that new ports are being built, it would modernize our infrastructure. And these are the kinds of investments that in the long term redound to the greater benefit of our citizens because it enhances our economy. Okay, I'm not even going to talk about the airport and so on, which 4 years have passed and nothing has been done about it. But Andre, before I open the lines, I want to touch on the banana lands. Now, that goes back to GPH, because with the advent of GPH and so on. So we first started with the sale of a piece of land to Reno Kajada's daughter at Banans, right? The opposition raised questions about the price that the land was sold and so on. The government didn't budge, they tried to justify it. Reno himself, I heard Reno himself on a talk show indicating that, boy, if anybody wants the land, he can sell it. But when you heard the price, I think he was saying something like $25 million for something he bought for a couple million. That tells you, because Reno is a businessman, he's an investor, and don't think I'm criticizing Reno. Reno does not owe us anything. Reno is not representing us. Reno is saying about his bottom line, saying about his investors, and if he has shareholders, or that's what his interest is. Our government is the one who's supposed to represent our interests. And you see how we're literally being sold out by our government. And when we speak about it, they couldn't care less. They wouldn't budge. But today, that same piece of land that was sold for so much, you can imagine the value of it now that we're talking about developing it. Okay, and so in terms of the development of the ports now, the government entered into a deal with GBH for 40 years. And people say 30 years, but it is 30 to 40 years because they have the option after 30 years of renewing. So I say 40 years. And GBH will have control of those ports for that period of time and will be the ones receiving the bulk of the revenue generated from our ports during that time. Now, why am I concerned about that, Andre? There are not many aspects of government operation that is profitable. Not many. As a matter of fact, there are those who say to you, when it comes to business, government should stay out of that because almost invariably they make a loss. One of the areas that generate revenue almost for sure is the port. And we're going to take that and give it to a foreign company for 40 years. And in return, we're going to say they're going to clear SLASPA debt, which is about $18 million, and we'll build a port. All told will cost about $40 million, if so much, and you give them your pots for that. And in the period we're talking about, they're going to make money in the vicinity of $400 million. And that money could be money that SLASPA would be making. SLASPA is a quasi-government institution, so in effect it is our money. But St. Lucians, do not forget that because of the upgrade they're talking about, they have already increased the head tax for passenger cruise. It used to be $6.50, and that $6.50 was $1.50 goes to solid waste. I think SLASPA gave government whatever, and the rest was SLASPA. Now, Andre, talk about solid waste, talk about government, talk about SLASPA, that's our money. All of those agencies work in our interests. But now you come and tell me, Andre Paul, now, that's your money, not mine. If you choose, if you are a good corporate citizen, you may decide you'll build a playing field for the people or do this or that, if you choose to. But what has happened? GBH is now charging $12.50. $10 out of that $12.50 is going to GBH. $1 to SLASPA and $1.50 to solid waste. I mean, come on. And you're telling me that government negotiated on our behalf in our interest? Now they're about to begin work. We have people at the Bannans Bay. They want to do some work there. The people have to be relocated. Now, Andre, I'm not so irresponsible so as to say that anytime government don't move and that kind of thing. And in the name of development, there are certain things that have to be done. There's the old saying that you cannot make omelette if you don't break eggs. So there'll be some inconveniences and so on. But a humane, caring, concerned government that puts you first will ensure that whatever the negotiations are, that your needs are taken into consideration, that you are well compensated if you have to be, and that the transition is a smooth one, so that you're not, after being displaced, not disadvantaged as well. But what has happened there? The same Ernest here represents Bannans. He is the Minister of Investment. He would have been part of the negotiations with GBH. So he knows more than you and I do what the plans were from times. Okay? It's not yesterday he found out that they're going to do what they're doing. And he knew that it would require the dislocation of some of the people. What was put in place for the people? And what I'm hearing now, again, it's like, I cannot believe it. It sounds appalling. I mean, we are being told that people are given whether it's $30,000, $35,000 or $40,000 and being told to leave. And they're given a certain time by which they have to leave. I even heard that they have begun breaking down some of the structures that are there. And first of all, there are some people who live there, residents. There are some people who do business there. So when you say to leave, Andre, if you're running if it's your home, you have to find a home somewhere else. If it is a business place like a shop, you have to find somewhere else. Land is an issue. Okay? That would be a big issue for you and I, but government has land. Now, Andre, to be honest with you see where I am in Grosile? There are any land you can give me that I will feel totally satisfied that will replace my land. That's the whole connection with home thing. But at least you send me to our boss's shoes somewhere. I'm not totally happy, but at least you have compensated me to a great extent and so on. I am hearing that some of the people have been moved and they have nowhere to go, That some of them they begun to squat near the hospital. But again, they have to move from there because that land is being sold as well. So you never took into consideration during the transition what happens to your people, to the extent that you have people who are homeless in the process, and you tell me you're a caring government, that you're interested in people. Again, who comes first? They are ensuring that the plans of the investor proceed without delay, without hindrances, without interruption. And they have to move now because the agenda of the investor is that they're ready to work there. But in moving you now, they never took into consideration, well, what will happen to Andre? Where will he go? Or anything like that.
By the way, what are the plans for that place?
They are going to build, they said they want to build like a fishing village, some fisherman's village or something to that effect, they call it. When it comes to nomenclature, they're good at that. And they're going to have restaurants and cafes and things like that there. That's what they're saying. Andre, and now the fishermen will be better off. Andre, I go to Bananas, or I stop there occasionally to buy fish. Okay? So you're telling me you're making provision for the fisherman to come in there with his fish to sell his fish? That's what you're saying? Spell it out if that's what you're saying. The cafes and the restaurants and so on, will it be given to the people who now operate businesses there? Say that if that's what you're saying. Because, Andre, remember, you, Andre, have no jurisdiction over what is there. It has been leased to a private company. They have jurisdiction over what is going on there. And if they decide that it's part of their profit making for them to run their concessionaires and their restaurants and cafes and everything like that themselves, that is what they will do. Now, you can jump high, jump low. They don't care about you. They don't need your vote. They don't need anything like that. Whereas our government, who we put in place, who depend on our support to continue being in place, had to ensure that we were taken care of in whatever form or fashion that should have been. So these people should have been engaged. And
by the way, this is another investor, right?
Another investor. Foreign investor. Another foreign investor. And I do not want to sound like I have any issue with foreign investors, because most investors who come with big investment come from overseas. However, we welcome them, but we have to make them understand we are engaging them in what is supposed to be a mutually beneficial arrangement, not a one-sided arrangement like we're having now. And so, I have not heard the parliament representative for Banan, Dr. Ernest Hiller. Okay? The people are out there crying foul. Nobody has come forward to say, well, that is the plan, that was what was put in place for them and so on. The Prime Minister at a town hall meeting in Grosile, so well, we're going to take care of the fishermen and so on. They're going to be cafes, they're going to, just superficial, rhetoric, not going into any details and spelling it out. Because again, a government that is not transparent, that is not accountable, they go into those kinds of arrangements. And the main reason I put it to the public of St. Lucia, the main reason why they refuse to detail the negotiations and arrangements and the deals that they have ironed out with those foreign investors, because they know it is not in the interest or the favor of the people. So they keep you in the dark as far as that is concerned, so that and when the time comes, they just sorry.
This is Meet the Opposition Your host is Lenard Montoute.
Thank you, Andre.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a new variant these days, you know.
Well, I hope it's not what I have. And I hope what I have in my cup is good for it.
Okay, I'm going to cut your microphone for you. Yeah, this is the live broadcast of Meet the Opposition, hosted by Lenard Montoute. And remember, we're live on Facebook, we're live on X, and we're live on YouTube. Special good morning to our listeners in the town of Supplier. We forgot to mention them this morning, Mr. Montoute,
Yes.
because we making sure we reach the folks in Supplier.
All right.
Right, very important. Yes.
So I'm back with you, Andre. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
And so we're talking about Supplier. Supplier is being impacted by that deal as well.
Already.
But the people of Supplier have no idea what the deal is. Again, when GPH moves into Supplier, they are going to develop the port there. What will be the arrangement? Those people who operate there right now, will they be given priority? Will they be allowed to operate there? And if they are allowed to operate there, will they be able to afford it? Because it's GPH property now for the next 30 to 40 years. And they will decide what the rent is and all of that. Now, we have business people at different levels. The little tea boutique person who's selling a little souvenir and so on, you tell them, well, 10,000 US a month for rent. You think they can deal with that kind of overhead? And these are the things that our government must take into account when negotiating with investors to ensure, as I spoke of, the benefit that will redound to the people of St. Lucia. That's we are not being put first by this government, bottom line.
So you're saying that the people in the Banan area, they have been asked to vacate?
Very much so. Not been asked to vacate. My understanding is that they are already demolishing some of the structures that are there.
And no, these are squatters, right? No doubt, yeah? These are squatters.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But they're squatting on government land.
Mm-hmm.
That's also important.
Mm-hmm.
They are squatting on government land. Now, I do not want to encourage squatting, because it results in unplanned development, which brings about many social problems and so on. But here is an opportunity, Andre. Here is the golden opportunity, given that development that is there, to do the necessary socio-economic impact assessment and so on, and to relocate those people in a far better, more superior situation than they were at Banans. And to upgrade the business people there to find themselves in a higher level environment where they could possibly make more money and so on. But that has not been taken into consideration by our government. They were not part of the configuration and the consideration. Obviously they were not. So much so that some of them are finding themselves homeless and what? In other words, Andre, that's high-handed and highly disrespectful and inconsiderate to just put $30,000-$40,000 in someone's hands and tell them go. Break down their structure, tell them go and find somewhere to live. Andre, I am putting it to you now that you, even if it is a plywood house, you have to first find somewhere to put it, land, and to build it.
Well, don't forget, Mr. Montoute, in all fairness, the residents of the CDC in Leclerc were victims of that same thing.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that governments over the years have been doing.
Okay. I mentioned Dr. Hilaire. He's the representative. You know who was the representative for Leclerc when that happened?
Yes.
Let's say it.
Yes, but he was part of your government.
Also, that makes it right?
I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm just saying to you, here you are criticizing what's happening right now.
Okay.
And that did happen.
I am saying to you, as a former parliamentary representative, my constituents would not be treated that way. And any representative who treat their constituents that way, the constituents should, because you see, the thing is,
no, I'm glad you're saying that, Mr. Montoute. Because let me ask you something. If you're part of a government, right? I'm not speaking only about the United Workers' Party administration, just in general, right? You're part of an administration, and there's something that's happening, like you mentioned the Banans situation right now, or during the time of the Leclerc CDC area. Even if you're not the parliamentary representative for that particular constituency, and you see this thing happening, which is clearly, unfair, right? Or maybe the way it's handled, don't you have a responsibility, right? Albeit that's not your constituency, right, to speak out and say you can't treat the people like that.
And I did. but we were told that the people were given adequate notice and all of those things. And
Well, they may argue, say the same thing for the bananas.
well, if that's the case, to say it. And even then, you don't treat people that way. And I'm saying so now.
So you say you did speak out at the time
Yes.
when the CDC people were.
That's correct.
Because remember,
I asked questions about it.
I know one particular family.
Mhm.
They were actually living in a vehicle.
Right.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. Now, you see, let me just say something to you. Do you remember when Kabat started their development? There was this lady called Marjorie who had a restaurant on the beach way before Kabat planned to come to St. Lucia. But however, given the plans for the development, she was, for lack of a better term, in the way. She was in the way of the development because she fell within the development, and they wanted her removed. Andre, I didn't get involved in all the public charade of the politicizing of that whole issue and everything that. But as parliamentary representative, I was part of the negotiation with Alan Chasney, Guy Joseph, and all of those people. And I was there. It wasn't a fight because they had agreed anyway, but I was there to ensure that Marjorie was adequately compensated. It was agreed that she'd be given another location, a piece of land, that her restaurant would be built for her, okay, and that she would get some compensation.
I recall.
The Labour Party made it a political issue. They came in and get torn and so on, held Kabat to ransom, okay, where Kabat agreed to what was already agreed to relocate her, build for her, give her an alternative location, build for her, and compensate her. They agreed. Admittedly, with the pressure that they were under being held to ransom, they increased the compensation at the time. Okay. Now, I'm not complaining about the increase of compensation. The better it was for her, the better it was. But I'm saying that at the time, I was there ensuring that she was not just kicked out with nowhere to go. And before they would have come to demolish her property, they would have to build and relocate her, right? And the government was providing the area for her to be relocated. That is how you do things, if in a humane, dignified manner. The same St. Lucia Labour Party championed her cause, made a song and a dance. And you know what the song was? Jack, the one with the brain on my beach.
I remember.
Okay? And there were members of this current cabinet in the forefront of that. So, that told me they really care about the plight of the ordinary St. Lucians. That's what he told me then. Only to realize some years later, when they were in a position to ensure that they negotiated, guarantee, and see about the plight of St. Lucians, that it was never their policy, it was never their plan, it was only politics. What is the difference between Marjorie and the business people and the residents of Banans? What is the difference? So, Jack, you had a problem with Jack not wanting you to bathe on the beach, but Jack can prevent the people from being at the port, and you don't have a problem with that. Hypocrisy. And when you see people are hypocrites, their true face always comes out at some point. We are seeing it now. Who is being put first now? GPH, not the people of Banans. Now, I want to take this opportunity to hail Tommy Descott, the endorsed UWP candidate for Castries South. I am a regular listener to the talk shows. I listen to Newspin on a regular basis. I was pleased, I was impressed, and I was proud to hear Tommy call the program and state vehemently his disgust and his opposition to what is happening there, and to go further to articulate what should have been done. Because it's easy to criticize, but what will you do had it been you? You understand what I'm saying? And I must say, that gives me hope for the future, and that tells me I am supporting the right political organization, the United Workers' Party. That young man was very impressive in what he says. I look forward to hearing more from him. He'll be on Meet the Opposition, and you'll get to see him and hear him and question him.
I heard him for the first time this morning.
Okay.
It was in the newscast.
Right. And he sounded like he was the parliamentary representative. So I'm saying to the people of Castries South, I'm making a recommendation to you. He should be your parliamentary representative. You would be better represented. Ernest Healy is not interested in you, does not care about you, your future or your interests. Cares about himself. Because for him to negotiate the kind of deals that they're negotiating, and at the end of the day, for you to be getting the shitty end of the stick, while, if anything, if they do speak out, is in the favor of the investors, they speak out, not in your favor. You know? And I'm saying to the people of St. Lucia, while the truckers go through their struggles, the people of Banans go through their struggle, there are others who have to take note and stand with them. Because today it is the people of Banans, tomorrow the project will be completed, it will be the taxi drivers who operate at Point Seraphine, which will belong to GPH. Okay? It will be the turn of the vendors who sell near the ports, okay, which will be the property of GPH. What will be your fate? Stand with them today so that they can stand with you tomorrow. And that is how St. Lucians have to operate to secure their benefit and their interest, especially when you do not have proper representation or representatives who do not have your interests at heart. Andre, I think we should open the lines.
Yes, we should.
Let's hear what St. Lucia has to say on the matter. I'm hoping I'll probably get some taxi driver, some vendor, somebody who is telling me that they are making plans to stand with the truckers, to stand with the people in balance.
Let me just give the numbers, if you don't mind.
Please, yeah.
The fixed line is 572-9710. The fixed line is 572-9710. The WhatsApp platform, it is 287-0971. WhatsApp is 287-0971. Again, the fixed line, 572-9710. WhatsApp is 287-0971. We have two calls. The first one is on the WhatsApp platform.
Okay. Good morning, caller. Thank you for calling Meet the Opposition. Welcome, and go ahead and make your contribution, please.
Good morning, Mr. Montoute, and good morning, Mr. Andre Paul.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
I think
Mr.
I recognize
Montoute.
that voice.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Hey, my long-lost friend. How are you?
I'm fine. I called you many times in St. Lucia, but your window's up, so you can't hear me. I'll be back shortly.
Okay, all right. We'll talk.
I thought it was only politicians getting pressure for that.
Yeah, we
they all
do
get, man. They all my brothers.
It's good to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Mr. Montoute, you're minister in charge of the public service. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's like between 2006 2011, yeah.
That's correct. And therefore, the General Services Administration would have fallen under your ministry. In other words, any building that has to be, rented
Correct.
by the government of St. Lucia, your ministry is the one that would go out and see if it fits the requirement and whatnot. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Very good. And you also know that in our legislation, nobody has the right to deface or vandalize any government property. Am I correct?
That's law, yes.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. You also know no government officer can just pick up his office, let's say from the Supplier waterfront, and go and put it in Palmis. Is that also correct?
That's correct. Not supposed to happen.
Thank you very much. So now we have established the points. You see, I like to deal with facts, and I appreciate you understanding. Can you please explain to the people of St. Lucia, how does the leader of the opposition picks up himself from the Ward building on High Street, which was the official office of the leader of the opposition, and find himself in San Souci, listen carefully, without the authorization of the said department? How does that happen?
Okay, I can investigate that for you, but because I do not know that that's what happened.
Oh, okay, fine. That's good. Next one. That's good. That's good. The second one that is of concern to me, how does a government property in Tiroche finds itself painted in any color by anybody without the permission of the line ministry. How did that happen?
Okay, well, I have a little knowledge of that one because the Sunday when that was done, I was in the area, and I was told by some of the individuals involved that that is in fact a community project that the Tiroche Development Committee actually procured the resources for it from the French government, I think they said, and that it was a community project that they did, and that the government has not maintained the facility, and that since some individual from overseas, who is, I imagine, from the area, offered to sponsor the upgrade. When I say upgrade, like, maintenance of it in terms of paint, pressure washing it and painting it and so on, he provided resources for that, and they provided the labor. So they went ahead and did it.
So are you saying that building does not belong to the government of St. Lucia? I'm asking. I'm not badgering you. I'm asking you.
No, you can't badger me.
Have you satisfied yourself?
No, I'm just saying it's not a building. It's a court.
Okay, have you satisfied yourself that court does not belong to the government of St. Lucia? Is there sufficient evidence?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. It is actually on government property. And even if you build it and it's on government property, you have to, as a maybe philanthropist and so on, you can do it, but you have to hand it over to government. It's not yours.
No, but what we need to establish is that property under the guidance of government, or is it under the guidance of a select committee? That's all I'm trying to find out there now.
Well, I do not know what the arrangement is, but whether it is the committee or council or whatever that is responsible for its maintenance or upkeep, it is government's property.
Okay, fine. So you say it's government property. So that means nobody should vandalize, deface any government property, and if they so do,
I agree.
The line ministry is supposed to make a report to the police station that the property has been vandalized and defaced, and somebody should pay for it. Am I correct? That should be the procedure.
That is correct.
Thank you very much. So let's leave that there. Now let's move one step further. Have you established the difference between crown lands, or can you define what is crown lands?
Crown lands is land belonging to government. They call it crown lands because we were once a colony of England, and everything we owned is the property of the Majesty Queen or King of England, and so they would say that it belongs to the crown. But really and truly, we still use that term, but crown lands mean government-owned lands.
That's correct. You're correct. I'm not taking away. You have fine definition. That's good. And it belongs to central government.
Yeah.
Are you aware that the lands in Banans, where these people are right now, is not crown lands?
Whose lands is it?
It belongs to SLASPA. SLASPA.
Can I inform you, sir?
Hold on. No, let me hold you there for a minute. SLASPA is a statutory body of the government of St. Lucia.
Thank you.
And therefore,
of the government of St.
does
Lucia.
not listen, and does not directly fall under the crown. Would you admit that or not?
Okay.
Or are you willing to double check with a lawyer? Or are you willing to double check with a lawyer to make sure what I'm saying? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let's dispose of that crown thing. We're talking about government-owned property.
No,
Government has the prerogative to divest any property of theirs into any organization. And
Very good word.
That is what happened with SLASPA. But SLASPA is an institution of government. So ultimately, it is government's land.
But it does not fall under the crown. Am I correct? You just described what is the crown. You described what was the crown. SLASPA does not fall under the crown. That's a fact.
I don't know what you mean by that it doesn't fall under the crown. But SLASPA is an agency of the government. Okay, it is a statutory body.
It's a statutory body.
Formed by government.
Statutory body.
Formed by government.
Right? The reason why it is a statutory body, because the government of St. Lucia, the government of Barbados, Trinidad, are not interested in making profit. And since SLASPA is an organization that intends to make profit, that is why they made it a statutory body. So therefore, these lands in Banans, and I will repeat, as SLASPA lands.
So whatever money that's generated from SLASPA is state money, you know.
Sir,
do you know that?
Let me ask you something.
As opposed to when GPH generates any money, that it is their money.
I am not talking about GPH.
I am talking about GPH.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I can't talk about GPH because I have not seen the contract. I heard your fireman.
I can talk about GPH because I can see the effects of the arrangement.
What effects have you seen? What are the effects, sir?
The displacement of St. Lucians that is done in an arbitrary and undignified manner.
Mr. Montoute, let me respect you, sir. We agree to disagree.
I hope I'm not disrespecting you.
You have a pleasant weekend.
Thank you.
Take care. No. Take care of yourself.
I will.
God bless
and you too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling.
Take care.
Paul, bye-bye.
We will talk. We will talk.
Thanks for calling, sir.
You have another call.
Yes. Good morning. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Please go ahead and make your contribution.
Good morning, Spider. Good morning, Andre.
Hello there.
Hi. Spider, this morning I am quite perturbed. I can see I'm angry. I am angry. I am disappointed. I am annoyed. The adjectives, there's not enough adjectives to describe how I feel right now. Because this government is starting to take people for puppy show. I am calling to make a statement on the availability of flour in St. Lucia. A few days ago, I publicly stated that there was no flour available on island. And that was the case. Indeed, it was the case for 2 days. A situation that affected bakeries and small businesses, especially in the south. In response, the government of St. Lucia released a video press statement showcasing flour stored in a government warehouse, accompanied by a dismissive remark suggesting that my claims were categorically false. Let me make it very clear. I stand by my statement. My comments were based on the real-time reality faced by suppliers and bakeries in the south of the island. What the government did, taking a video after the problem was resolved, is the easiest form of damage control. It doesn't change the fact that during those 2 days, there was indeed no flour available to many wholesalers, and bakeries were forced to scale down or suspend their operations. The issue is not whether there is flour in a warehouse today. The issue is the instability and the inconsistency in the supply of essential goods like flour and sugar, which has made it nearly impossible for bakeries and other businesses to plan and to operate sustainably. While I must commend the government of St. Lucia on its strong public relations and communications team, truly, they are excellent at rapid response and media strategy. One can only hope that the same level of energy and urgency would be applied to crafting and implementing policies that actually serve the people of St. Lucia. Why did the government allow the contract with the mill to lapse before proper renegotiations? Why are merchants in the south not allowed to purchase directly from the mill and must instead truck flour from Castries, incurring transportation and labor costs that we cannot recover? This situation is not new. Between 2011 and 2016, under a similar policy shift, the Ministry of Commerce, the subsidiaries on flour, sugar, and rice were removed, and merchants in the south were expected to absorb the additional cost. Now listen to this. This is where it is heartbreaking. We were forced to sell a pound of flour that cost us $1.10 to acquire for just $1, and a pound of sugar with the same cost structure also for $1. A pound of rice that cost us $1.50 for just $1.25. Listen, this is far from sustainable. Suppliers like myself and the bakeries we serve cannot operate under conditions where basic production inputs are here today and gone tomorrow. If the government truly wants to support local businesses and protect jobs, then it must ensure stable, fair, and accessible supply chains for all regions of the country, not just the north. This is not about politics. This is about people's livelihoods. It is about the baker who cannot bake, the supplier who cannot supply, and the customer who goes home empty-handed. We need solutions, not PR spins. We need consistent access not last-minute video walkthroughs as if that will cause the people of St. Lucia, who are already disenfranchised, to change their minds. At the height of the crisis, when sugar and flour and rice were unavailable to wholesalers like myself, I was left with no choice back then, Spider, to call the Ministry of Commerce. I explained the situation, how the situation was unsustainable, and that they had to act. Initially, I was told the ministry could do nothing. They could not intervene in price control or fix the logistics problems. When I persisted and eventually spoke with the Minister for Commerce directly, I had to issue a very real and very serious warning. If something wasn't done immediately, I would be forced to start sending employees home. And it's only then we got a reprieve. Is that what they are expecting us to do now with the instability of flour, sugar, and rice? Every other month is a shortage here and a shortage there. You know, how can we ask people to come to work and simply sit there with no goods to sell, no way to earn a revenue, no certainty about tomorrow? How do you expect any business to operate under these conditions? This is not a charitable organization. We are not government-run depots. We are commercial enterprises. We are businesses whose primary function is to generate income, pay staff, support families, and contribute to the economy. When there is no product, no flour, no sugar, no rice, we have no basis to remain open.
Well, that's because, caller, there is no governance, no management. That is the root cause of the problem you're talking about. You know that there is no shortage in the world for sugar, and there'll be a shortage of sugar in St. Lucia. That is because you have a Minister of Commerce that is incompetent and unable to do the basics. Even the average shopkeeper knows how to deal with stocking and that kind of thing.
We don't have a Minister of Commerce. We have a Minister of Commerce. And frankly, it's not hard. It is hard, rather, to not feel that the people of the South are being punished for the historic loyalty to the St. Lucia Labour Party. It cannot be a coincidence that every time there is a national breakdown, it is the South that feels the brunt of it. We bear the pain of shortages, the weight of neglect, the cost of poor decisions made far away from our communities. And I'm saying to the Prime Minister, if you expect us in the South to continue supporting your foolish government, then you must fix the problems, not just talk about them after the fact. Your administration's failure to plan, to act, and to communicate transparently is not just poor governance, it is gross negligence. And let me be even clearer, it is already too late, because we, the United Workers' Party, and the well-meaning citizens of this country who have our country at heart will not wait, or we will not accept this any further. The damage is already done. Our businesses are struggling. The trust is already eroded. What St. Lucians want is not another video, not another press release, but real, sustained solutions that respect the dignity of our communities and support our ability to thrive. Let this be the last time, Mr. Prime Minister, that the people of the South are left to fend for themselves in a crisis caused by your government's inaction. We will not stand for it anymore. And come election day, we will massively go to the polls and show what we are made of, the stern stuff that you think that we are not made of. The tide is turning. Fix it now. Fix it now. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, caller. Thank you. And you know, the government will tell you when it's convenient that they can't do anything about the situation, because remember what they said about the inflation. It was important. They can do nothing about it. But election is approaching, and they're going to offer you, tax cuts. They're going to offer you, all kinds of subsidies and so on. But these are only temporary to gain your trust and win your vote. And as soon as they do, they go back to their usual policies. So do not be fooled once again, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, you have another call?
Yes, good morning. Welcome to Meet the Opposition. Please go ahead and make a contribution, caller.
Good morning, Andre. Good morning, Mr. Montoute.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Montoute, I'm so happy that you gave the definition of crown lands, and stuff like that. Because I going back on Talbot Estate again. Talbot Estate was not owned by any government because I was brought up on that estate. The area where Ezekiel took, in fact, he took the whole of Talman and part of Babono and stuff. That land it belongs to my family. They said that because the land was going tax and stuff, why they took over the land. But that was Ezekiel doing in the place. It used to be Alvina, but she couldn't go through, or what happens, I don't know. But Ezekiel had the more say in that land and stuff. Now, you are saying that Crown lands is maybe have to be government property or whatsoever and stuff. But Talman Estate was never Crown land. That was private property. I do not know if it's because of some of the people that is on the land that voting for certain parties why all these things are happening and things so. But Talman Estate was never Crown land.
All right, I must confess, Scholar, while it's true I was in cabinet then, I mean, I do not know the details about that arrangement and so on, because these kind of details would not come before us in cabinet. And since I must confess to you, I did not have any direct interest in the matter to dig so deep to know whose land it belonged to and what the details are and so on. I cannot go into that. I really do not know.
You know exactly where that now they are selling to people. That section was my grandmother's property because they were three of them. One of my uncle lives in Suriname. He passed a while ago, a long time ago. My uncle told me that was a butcher in Talvan, and my grandmother's name was Silesia in Babono. Right. That portion now they are selling to people, and they want to build all whatsoever they want to build on belongs to my grandmother.
Well,
now,
so why don't you all claim then?
Let me tell you something.
If it belongs to you and you have the requisite documentation to show that.
I'm saying not to me, to my grandmother Silesia, Selena John or Silesia Samuel, that was her name. After my grandmother passed away, they removed her name on the land. I do not know which one of them because that cousin of mine, he lives in New York now. His name is Paris. He was the one that was in charge and renting to people. That was Talvan proper. On the side of the roads there, Talvan proper. Up where they are now building, we calling them Montoute, where I was raised little girl growing up. I know that part belongs to my grandmother.
Well, Colin, what you need to do is secure the services of a lawyer and let him dig into the matter for you.
I don't have money. I don't even have money. And so I don't have money to... I don't have money to take care of myself. I'll give lawyer to it my money. I don't even have money.
But if it is really your land and he can find out that it is your land, you can compensate. You can negotiate a compensation deal with him, and it will be with your land.
Monies are paid for that. People have people that have received monies and things so on. They have no say in that land or that part of the family, you know. And I do not have money to give to lawyer because I need to take care of my health because my health now is more important than the land. Now, as you now speaking about what the definition of crown lands, I call them because I do not know if politicians want to be in politics just to take things that belongs to them or to do things that is not right and stuff. Let me tell you all people.
Okay, you know, the thing about it, I can understand your feelings because you have a situation, but appreciate and understand that I do not know the details of what you're saying there. I do not know, exactly what the situation is.
Just now we're talking about Madri. You're talking about Miss Madri.
I was familiar with the situation with Madri.
And hear that. That man came to St. Lucia, the guy, whatsoever his name is, he came to build. Madri, the lady is a St. Lucian, and you all had preferred to give him the same modern Madri. And imagine,
who's you all?
Guess what money that was?
Oh, no, wait a minute, who's you all? Anyway, Caller, what I'm saying to you is that you have a grievance. The only way I can suggest to you that it will be settled.
You see that property, exactly where they now have souls and want to build whatsoever. That belongs to it hurts, it is hurting that I am my grandmother's daughter's second, my grandmother's second daughter. And I do not have cannot bill up there because it's a while years since I was trying to get a piece of land. And it happens, maybe the greed of these these people, that why maybe all that are happening.
Okay, but Carla, you're putting a lot of things that I cannot address and we can't do anything about it unless you do what I suggest to you. So that is a matter I suggest greatly that you take to the attention of.
So I don't have that I do not want to take it anywhere. What I'm saying to you
okay,
now,
so what is it you want me to do for you?
Stop taking people and that it belongs to you. Stop making people cry, putting tears in people's eyes, and stop doing those things. I don't care about that now because it's already taken. I can't do nothing about it.
I never took anybody's land, caller. So let's stop taking.
It could be SLP. I'm not talking about you personally. I'm talking about it could be SLP or you stop hurting people in these.
But you have rights, caller. You have rights, and unless we exercise our rights, because I'm saying to you, I'm sure there are lawyers who will take up your case if they see that you in fact have a case, and you can compensate them after you've won your case. So please explore that possibility, okay, caller?
Yes, sir. Let me tell you something. I am not interested of looking for a lawyer.
So
I am now.
So what are you going to do about it?
I'm concerned about my health now because now my health needs more attention now than the land.
Silton, let me help you a little there. I think she's sending a message to both parties that when these things are being done, to take people's feelings into consideration. That's what she's saying there.
Okay.
She said she's gone through it. She's gone through it, and she's saying, well, okay, moving forward.
You're saying the same thing with
personal. It wasn't personal.
You're saying the same thing with me, and that's what I've been talking about when it comes to the people at Banan. And let me just say something to you. I was parliamentary representative of Grosile. Richard Frederick was Minister of Housing, and he went ahead and acquired the lands belonging to Felicians in Bosage without any consultation or anything with them. And there are a lot of them that are still alive and who can tell you that Richard Frederick is alive. So I brought the matter to Cabinet and had the situation reversed. Okay? I do not take lightly such things. I do not encourage or endorse those things, and so I will not be a part of any endorsement of a situation like this. And that's why I think if you're wrong, there are measures for you to be compensated and, for the situation to be made right.
Okay, caller, thank you. Thank you very much. We have to end the show. Sorry about that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Montoute, we have to wrap up.
I think we had a very interesting show today. I hope we'll shed some light on some situations that would be of assistance to people and get them better informed. I want to thank those of you who called. I want to thank those of you who were listening. And I suspect I'll be here again next week where we can continue our discussion. And Andre, thanks again for
engaging you,
for being the devil's advocate. I don't like that term, devil's advocate. The person who does what you do is not a devil as far as I'm concerned. So thank you, Andre.
Yes, and I'm happy with your response, because people may not understand and thinking I'm just putting unnecessary
Andre,
pressure.
Give me 1 minute, please, for me to do something I forgot to do. During Sunday Live, the UWP had a Sunday Live in Forest, in Tiroshi, and I made a statement, and I suspect it was taken in a context that that caused someone to be aggrieved, and it was brought to my attention. I said the Prime Minister refers to himself as a six-star general. I think he's more a six-star general, and that I say by the time election is over, he'll be a dead-star general. It was interpreted that I want him to die and that kind of thing. I want to make it clear that that's not my intention. I have no ill will or influence towards the Prime Minister to that extent, and I have no reason to want him to die. That was just political banter, and I was going to focus on the general, that he'll no longer be a general. That's what I meant, and if it came out the wrong way, I didn't mean it to come out that way. I just wanted to say that.
Bravo, Mr. Montoute.
Yeah.
Bravo to you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so until next week Thursday, same time, 9 o'clock for another Meet the Opposition. This is the end of my stint here on Rev-Up. We have Kina coming on next. She'll be with you until 3 this afternoon. From 3 is going to be Zen the DJ. So on behalf of Mr. Montoute, do have yourself a great day. A great Thursday, actually. And tomorrow morning, you can join me same time, 5 o'clock. That's 5 o'clock in the morning for another Wake Up and Live. Andre Paul saying so long.